We'll call to order the City of Beaumont regular council meeting of Tuesday, September the 10th. Are there any changes to the agenda? Ms. Winter.
Thank you, Your Worship. Administration is requesting one amendment to the agenda this evening. Addition of item under correspondence 12A, the Beaumont Library request. Copies have been distributed to council and have been made available to the public at the back room. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Councillor Van Newkirk.
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor? Carries unanimously. And just before we get going tonight, we have one proclamation. September is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. And so whereas prostate cancer is the most common cancer among Canadian men, and whereas 1 in 7 Canadian men will be diagnosed with the disease, and whereas an estimated average of 11 Canadian men die from prostate cancer every day, and whereas the survival rate for prostate cancer is nearly 100% when detected early, but 3 of 4 men will die when found late, and whereas black men and those with a family history of the disease are at a greater risk, and whereas since Prostate Cancer Canada was formed in 1994, the death rate has been cut in half, and whereas awareness and conversations about prostate cancer can lead to screening and early detection that save lives, and whereas the City of Beaumont supports Prostate Cancer Canada and everyone committed to raising awareness about prostate cancer, now therefore be it resolved that I, Mayor John Stewart, do hereby proclaim September 2019 as Prostate Cancer Awareness Month in the City of Beaumont, Alberta, dated this 14th day of August 2019. Thank you very much. All right, which leads us into item 3, consent agenda. Tonight we have 3 items on the consent agenda, so I move that council consent to approve the following agenda items without debate. Item 5A, special council meeting minutes from August 27th, 2019. Item 5B, regular council meeting minutes of August 27th, 2019. And item 5C, special committee of the whole meeting September 3rd, 2019. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, so we have no items on no members of the public wishing to speak during the open forum this evening. There are no public hearings, which brings us to registered presentations. It was my great pleasure to welcome Mr. Alan Jacobson to the front to give us an update on the Tour de l'Alberta.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship, Mayor and Council and the staff. Thank you for this opportunity to give you a little briefing on the Tour de l'Alberta that just happened, the 25th anniversary. On vous remercie d'avoir l'opportunité d'être avec vous ce soir et de vous donner quelques paroles ce qui concerne le 25e anniversaire de la Tour de l'Alberta. We had a wonderful event. Mayor Stewart was with us, some others were there. I just want to first of all commend the staff of the city now of Beaumont for their incredible support and engagement on the day of. We've always got great support, feedback from staff, and this year was no exception. That was our 4th year. Looking forward to many more. Tour de l'Alberta was the 25th anniversary. And I've just got some photos. My colleague Michael McFinn, Revolution Cycle, is caught in traffic right now, but he was going to be here tonight to give you some of the stats. As far as I know, ballpark, we had over 700 cyclists. And again, we had an uptake of about 200 or 300 brand new cyclists to the event, wow, which is consistent in the last 4 or 5 years. So again, we're introducing people to the City of Beaumont. We had real challenges this year with some of the construction on the highways. As you know, 814 was finished just the day before the event, which made for a beautiful re-entry into Beaumont, smooth asphalt and that. So we had some challenges with that. Next year, we're looking forward to great routes all over because a lot of the paving has been done this year for us. So, and there's Michael. Right on schedule. This is Michael McFinn, the major sponsor, Revolution Cycle, for the tour. We just got started, Michael.
Sorry about that. No worries.
No, I just explained you were caught in traffic. He cycled all the way from Edmonton, so he's a little tired. Shane, how do I? We've got just a few photos. Michael, I just mentioned that we had over 700 cyclists. We had challenges with the routes, but overall we had a great event.
Yeah, we had a fantastic event. Sorry, I forgot about the dot. I mean, stats, we grew the event. You know, being able to grow the event with 1/3 of your event always renewing and having brand new riders every year is pretty awesome. So we're pretty proud of that.
Should I go through?
Yeah.
So just a few photos to show, you know, sort of the gist and the scale and scope of the event. We had the event, for those of you who aren't too aware of it, 165-kilometer route, a 100-kilometer route, a 50-kilometer route. They all start and finish in Beaumont. They go through counties of Strathcona, Beaver, Camrose, and Leduc. Some of the great support provided by Revolution Cycle. They have all their technicians and mechanics. And when you think of these kinds of mechanics, I was making the allusion to the fact that a lot of these are $5,000 to $15,000 bikes, right, out on the road. So that's like having a Maserati, a Ferrari, or a Lamborghini mechanic on site all day. Is that fair enough?
Yeah.
Yes. Stop hitting the buttons, guys.
That's what the...
Just
don't touch a thing?
touch the buttons. I got her beat.
Stop touching the button.
We can plan for a massive event, but we can't work the microphones. This is what this wonderful Ken Nickel Rec Center looks like in the morning when we have our 400 cyclists mustering for the 100-kilometer ride. You've got the beer garden, you've got the green tree landscaping trailer out there. And again, we were really fortunate that wonderful little Ella, who I saw Sunday night at the International Insurance Convention in Edmonton, the lane that you provide for Ella was a perfect lane for us to get out of town with all of our cyclists. There's Worship Mayor Stewart giving words of welcome. And there's Ella in the background, a prime spot for her, or it. That's what happens in the lobby of the Ken Nickel with our registration. And again, these two fellows that are leaving the 100-kilometer ride, one is Don Petty, who's the originator of the event, 25 years, and the other is Gunter. I don't recall his last name, but he, at the moment of the ride there, he is 90 years old, and he rode the 100-kilometer ride, and which is truly remarkable. He used to do the 165, didn't he, Michael, till he was about 85. Again, there's some of the beautiful ride, the scenery. We're blessed in this part of the world to have such gorgeous scenery, the canola fields. And again, there's that fresh paved highway for us, which was a bonus. There's a good photo.
This picture demonstrates the wide variety of riders that we have. You know, this gentleman's on a flat bar mountain bike. Wider tires. He's not on one of your high-end road bikes. So it really is a demonstration of how this is a community cycling event, not a race. You know, we can speak to other events that are happening, that just happened last weekend, specifically in Drayton Valley. They had just less than 300 riders, and it's a race. And so they essentially ostracize a large part of the cycling community by calling it a race. By us calling it a tour, enables us to bring all walks of life to the cycling community.
And we pride ourselves in presenting great rest stations, and that's just an example. We had about, well, over 150 volunteers, again, this year. And a rest station, for those of you who don't know anything about the event, is every 25 kilometers we provide, as you see there, some fruit, some sustenance, some hydration, and some great, cheery, smiley volunteers to help you all the way through. We've got some great teams out, the Sloth Cycling team, which are great. We used to have the Old Spokes out of Calgary. I think the minimum age was 65 for those folks. So just some great participation all the way through. Oh, that's Michael's lovely wife, Bonnie, again at a rest station. This is at Rollyview. And I approached them again, and all of the businesses that we approached that are very interested in supporting this event. There's another happy finisher. And I send everyone off in the morning, so does Michael, and we greet every single rider coming back in. And just the elation, the joy on 99.9% of the cyclists saying that, my God, I finished, I made it. and a lot of them are really competitive. A lot of them, like Michael said, are just out for a wonderful ride and just to celebrate cycling community and culture. Again, just some more happy faces. You can see all the smiling faces coming into the Ken Nickel. Beautiful facility. We ended up having a beautiful day. It started off pretty cold and wet.
Would you like?
You better announce the date.
So 2020. So as tradition with the Tour de l'Alberta, Tour de l'Alberta is always on the last Sunday of the Tour de France, and in 2020, July 19th is that date. So I believe we're here officially.
I think we're here officially to request that Beaumont, the city of Beaumont, hosts again with us the 2020 Tour de l'Alberta on July 19th with the same support, the same wonderful engagement through mayor, council, and staff as we've had in the past. And we will certainly do our best to provide one of the great non-competitive community cycling events in Western Canada.
Yeah, no, and we are, on behalf of the city, we are more than happy to host this event. It's a great event. It's a feather in our cap, and it's one of the highlights of our year. It showcases our community well. It showcases cycling well. And so, yeah, we're more than happy to have this event remain at home here in Beaumont. So
Sweet.
Terrific.
Grateful.
Thank you. We've got a couple of items for Mayor and Council.
Oh, we have one item.
We have one item for Mayor and Council.
So as is the tradition every year, we present you with a jersey. This is this year's 25th anniversary jersey. We had a piece of artwork commissioned specifically for it, so you'll see it on there. We have, there is actually a t-shirt as well that, was not dropped off as well with the artwork, but we'd like to present this with the t-shirt.
Oh, that's right.
I didn't want that. Guys too.
Hit the button, like, choose the song.
Yeah.
Miranda's working on it. One, two, three.
Thanks. Thank you so much. Thank you. You've got it. Thank you, staff, very much for everything you do.
No,
Thank you.
no, we're good. No, thank you very much. It's always fun to have those guys come in and give us the update. No bad news. It's awesome. All right. Which brings us to business item 8A, elected official appointment, inter-city forum on social policy. Ms. Winter.
Never had one. So good evening, Your Worship and members of council. I don't have a t-shirt to give anybody tonight, but I'm here to ask if we could have an elected official representative to sit on the Inner City Forum on social policy. So as we're all aware, back in January, we became a city, and as a result, we were extended an invitation by the Inner City Forum on social policy to become a member of that forum. That forum is a vehicle for information sharing, and its main purpose is to address social policy, programs, services, and issues that are of concern to urban municipalities in Alberta. The City Forum has been around for a number of years. There are currently about 20 municipalities that are on the membership. They meet twice a year. Generally, the the first part of the year. Second part of the year, one meeting's in Edmonton, one meeting's in Calgary, and I'm here tonight to ask Council if you'd like to be a part of the Intercity Forum, and should you support appointing a councillor, that the appointment will be done as part of the organisational meeting that you're having on October the 8th.
Thank you very much. I think this is a great opportunity. Apparently this is one of the perks you get when you become a city. Councillor Barnhart, got some questions?
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Ms. Wilston, for bringing this to our attention. I know the committee from my past life with the City of Edmonton, so I'm very supportive of it. And I understand waiting till the organizational committee makes a lot of sense to do that. But one of the questions I had is just to make sure there's no meetings before that we would need to have somebody appointed, or what would be the procedure if we did?
Good question.
Your Worship, through to Councillor Barnhart. Actually, the 2 meetings this year have already occurred. I'm not sure why, but they've already occurred. However, I was extended an opportunity via email to participate in an online meeting that's scheduled for this fall. I don't have that date on me at this time, but there will be an opportunity to be part of an online, not an in-person meeting in 2019.
That means it's going to occur between now and October 8th? I think it's October.
Your Worship, I need to confirm what that date is.
Okay. Right. So if it happens, we'll figure it out. Is there a member of council prepared to move this motion? I think this is a great opportunity. Councillor Barnhart?
Do that. I'll make the motion, Your Worship, that we join the Intercity Forum on Social Policy.
Cool. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Which brings us to item 8B, elected official appointment to the Beaumont Youth Council.
Hey, Your Worship. So I'm here again tonight to ask for an elected official appointment on the Beaumont Youth Council.
Beaumont Youth Council has operated in some capacity for a number of years, since 2008. The Youth Council has been fairly active in our community, and it's had a short break. And after the short break and a very successful dinner with Mayor and Council back in the winter, there was some discussion about the value of, I guess, basically reinstating the Beaumont Youth Council. And so I'm here tonight with Brodie Stenhouse, who is the representative from FCSS, who is actually leading the Youth Council. And again, I'm here to ask Council if they would like to be part of the Youth Council, and if they do support an appointment, if that would be part of the organisational meeting again on October the 8th. And if you have questions, I have Brodie here, and he'd be happy to answer any that you may have.
Awesome, that's great. I mean, I remember that dinner, and that was one of the things that both council and the youth were really interested in seeing happen was the Youth Council. So I open it up to members of council for questions. Councillor Danlock.
Thank you, Your Worship. I support this idea wholeheartedly. Look forward to having a council member appointed in October, which may be myself. We'll see. I'm interested in participating in this, but we'll see how our workload is in October with redistributing our committee obligations. One quick question is, I think for Brodie, is if the council is sort of up and running now already, is that my interpretation? How many members are there, and how are they selected? Are they all volunteers, or some more background on what's currently happening? Thank you.
For sure. Your Worship, through to Councillor Daniluk. Right now we have about 6 core members. A lot of them were present at that dinner. Basically how I did the recruitment process right now was talking to those that were present that night that really had that energy and the desire to do it, and then talk to a couple other targeted kids that I knew that would be good, that would fit kind of the bill, that would be, want to have their say in certain things and that kind of thing. So that's what we have right now. As far as moving forward with membership, we are going to look into like an application process, what that looks like, and something that's fair, but makes sure that we get a commitment for the youth that join. And that'll be kind of on our next agenda for our next meeting. But yes, so we have met 3 times already and had their involvement running a portion of the Movie in the Park event last Friday as well. So, yeah.
Thanks. Councillor Van Uyghur.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to see this move forward. There was a lot of excitement and smiles in the room as the conversation happened that evening around reforming. So happy to support that. Are looking at the terms of reference, are the meetings occurring on Wednesdays?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, you betcha. So I was also myself looking forward to put my name forward for that. Unfortunately, Wednesdays I already volunteer with scouting, so I'm out. But was looking forward to getting involved if possible. So very excited for some of the outcomes and some of the engagement, and just the fact that organizing some of that energy I think is going to be a real benefit for Beaumont. So thank you for that.
Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for bringing this forward. I'm glad tonight to see on the agenda both of these committees coming forward, because I think they're both, I won't say long overdue, because we've had them, but we haven't had this one operating in a while, at least with council's involvement. So I'm really pleased to see that. One question, and forgive me if it's here and I've missed it, is the councillor's role one of a non-voting liaison, or is it a fully participating member? Because again, my opinion on that, if you'd like to know, I think council plays a good role in bringing the information back and forth, but I'd like to hear from the youth in terms of their decision making and then bring it to council as advisory. But it doesn't say that I can see here. Just wondering if you could clarify.
Yeah, Your Worship, through Councillor Barnhart. I'm not sure as of now. Basically, our goal is to have that back and forth dialogue. As far as voting on things, my inclination would be that the liaison role would probably be more, that would make more sense, but, I'll talk, and, I truly don't know much of the difference between the two, so we'll talk when we have our council member, when we are all, together at our meeting, and we can, update the terms of reference from there and figure out what works best with this group, I think.
Yeah. My hope would be that the youth feel a sense of that it's their advisory committee, and whoever the councillor is, and I fully support any one of us being there. I think that it would be a good idea to have them have a voice where, it's not, the councillor isn't, none of us want to, but we sometimes do influence the vote one way or the other. And so I think it's important to give them as much power as possible. And then it does come to council, it's advisory. So, that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Councillor Dunlop.
Thank you, Richard. A quick follow-up question while I thought of it here. Ms. Williston, so I see on our briefing notes that there's no budget or financial implications on this decision today, which is fine. But I'm wondering, any committee will normally have some type of expenses. Are you envisioning potentially this committee being under the FCSS budget presently, or looking to expand some budgetary money for this youth council into next year's budget? What are your thoughts at this point, if you've had a chance to give any thought to that?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Daniluk. We're FCSS, we're mean, we're lean, and no, we don't have a budget for this. However, it does fall under the FCSS umbrella. There are minimal costs to administer youth council. However, in the past, we have had some programs that have been generated as a result, and those generally have come out of the FCSS budget under the asset building line item.
If there are no more questions from members of council, once again, I think this is a great idea. Is there a member of council willing to move the appointment? Councillor Daniluk.
So move, Your Worship. Thank you.
Discussion on the motion? All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
All right, which brings us to item 8C, 2020 Beaumont franchise fees.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. I'm Curtis DeBlanco, the Director of Finance Administration is bringing forward a request for decision regarding the 2020 franchise fees. At this time, administration is recommending that council proceed with the proposed franchise fee increase from 11.125 to 17.25 for electricity through Fortis, Alberta, and from 24.5 to 28.5 for natural gas through AltaGas in order to implement for a January 1, 2020 start date. Background on this is the city has franchise agreements with both Fortis, Alberta, and AltaGas to receive franchise fees. There is a maximum amount of 20% through the Fortis agreement, currently at 11.125, as stated before, a maximum of 35% through the AltaGas franchise fee, currently at 24.5. During the 2019 budget deliberations, council approved an increase 50% of the way to an average of comparable municipalities in the region, with the intent in the 2019 to 2023 financial plan to implement the second phase as of January 1, 2020. The intent during budget deliberations was to use the increase for future capital projects, and then at the subsequent budget amendment at the April 23rd, 2019 council meeting was recommended that the franchise-free revenue increase be used to fund the debenture principal and interest repayments for the BSRC. In doing that, freeing up federal gas tax funding for the future capital projects, as stated before. Based on average consumption, estimated increase on the average residential consumer is approximately $2.83 per month for gas and $4.34 per month for electricity. Options would be, as stated before, administration recommends that council proceed with the proposed franchise fee increase as outlined in the 2019 to 2023 financial plan. Option 2 would be to wait until the 2020 budget workshop to discuss any further increase, or to direct administration how they would like to proceed. Open the floor to questions at this time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your bringing this forward tonight. So the way I'm reading this is more an administrative item to move forward a decision that council already made at its 2019 budget meeting. Is that correct?
To your worship, that's correct.
Okay. Because if I remember that day, and it was a pretty robust conversation surrounding raising these fees in 2 bumps. So at this point, I will open it up to members of council for questions before we make a motion. Questions from members of council? Okay. Sure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jabanko, for that. I understand if it's administrative, but I don't understand why it would have to come back to us again. So maybe that's the question. Because if it was passed in the budget, why do we have to pass it again?
Through your worship to Councillor Barnhart, the budget was for 2019. The financial plan is more of a framework from 2019 to 2023. This is more just to get approval to go forward with the process to advertise the increase, as well as go through the application process through Fortis and AltaGas to the Alberta Utilities Commission.
Follow up.
Thank you. So the amount of money we were collecting, nothing of any significance has changed here in terms of the amount that we're collecting or how we're collecting it. It's simply paperwork to get it done.
Through your worship to Councillor Barnhart, yes, the paperwork to get it done for the second phase of the increase, which was planned for January 1, 2020.
All right, so seeing no further questions, I will move that council proceed with the proposed franchise fee increase as per response option number 1. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Which brings us to item 9A, Bylaw 96-19, Electric Distribution Service, first reading.
Thank you, Your Worship. Before you is bylaw 960-19, the electric distribution service. At this time, administration recommends that council give first reading to this bylaw, which is a bylaw providing electric distribution service within the legal boundaries of the municipality. Background on this: with the annexation, the lands within the new boundaries of the municipality include members of a rural electrification association. Currently, the city of Beaumont is under a municipal franchise agreement with Fortis Alberta, which allows them exclusivity within the municipality. This bylaw will reinforce that agreement and prohibit other persons within municipal boundaries for providing electric distribution services. Further that, what this does will allow uniformity and consistency as well as safety within the municipal boundaries and equity among all landowners and residents in that they would have the same electric distribution service. At this time, administration recommends that council give first reading to this bylaw.
Okay, open it up to questions from members of council to clarify this bylaw. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you for presenting. Had some clarifying questions around this one here tonight, and 5 in total, so I'll start with the first one, I suppose. First one was, have any other municipalities in Alberta created the bylaw following this AUC ruling? And if so, any indication who has moved forward with this?
Sure. Through your worship to Councillor Van Newkirk, there are approximately 42 municipalities going through the same process. Currently, a few have gone through, namely Kalmar, Onaway, Devon, and Leduc are going through the exact same process Beaumont is going through right now.
And so subsequently the outcomes are in flux at this point?
Through your worship to Councillor Van Newkirk, the Kalmar, Onaway, Silver Sands, some summer villages have already gone through the process and are complete. Devon, Leduc, and ourselves are going through the process right now.
Okay. Some of our background documentation alludes to it, but what's historically been the trigger for the asset transfer outside of this AUC ruling? What's been the historical trigger on that?
It's been, through your worship to Councillor Van Newkirk, the trigger has been annexations. In 2016, Fortis put forth a request to the Alberta's Utility Commission to have the boundaries reviewed after multiple municipalities have annexations and have municipal franchise agreements in place, some of which overlap these rural electrification associations. So this ruling by the Alberta Utilities Commission basically upheld that the municipal franchise agreements in place should be the guiding document in terms of exclusivity within those boundaries, and essentially prompts these service providers to relook at what the boundaries are.
Fair enough. I guess one of the main heart of the question here on the third one is, how would or could this decision affect the power bills of Beaumont residents? Do we have any examples of how it's affected the bills or service levels of other municipalities post change?
Through your worship to Councillor Van Newkirk, we are not privy to those records, so administration could not comment on that.
Okay. Currently, the REAs are members of a cooperative, and right now the cooperatives own those assets. In this asset transfer, is there a mechanism for the asset to be purchased from the REA by Fortis? Are you aware of that? Do you know?
Yes. Through your worship to Councillor Van Newkirk, this would prompt Fortis to purchase the assets from the REA. The members of the REA would have equity stakes within it, essentially had paid for the service whenever it became to be. This payment from Fortis to the REA would be essentially paying for it again. So the the equity stake within the REA would be between said REA and the resident at that time.
That's right. Yeah. So it would be a asset transfer purchase based on a depreciated value, and so there would be money from Fortis to the REA to cover the transfer of that asset that would be available to the members, I guess, because the REA would have that money. If there were any last question, if there was any further clarifying questions in the second or third reading that came up that administration didn't know the answer to, what would be the process to get some answers to those questions?
Through your worship to Councillor Van Newkirk, the process would be to reach out to Fortis and perhaps Battle River to get those clarifying questions before second and third reading.
Cool. Okay, thank you.
Questions from other members of council? Actually, Councillor Van Newkirk sort of hit all my highlights except for one. Is there any type of liability that could be accrued by the municipality in the transfer of these assets, or is that a straight commercial transaction between the two?
To your worship, those costs would be between Fortis and Battle River.
Cool. All right. Is there a member of council willing to move first reading this evening? Councillor Stout.
So moved, your worship.
Thank you very much. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? And that carries unanimously. Which brings us to item 9B, Bylaw 947-19, Bylaw Enforcement Officer for first, second, and third readings.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. A pleasure to be here with you this evening. I am before council this evening seeking three readings, first, second, and third on bylaw number 947-19, the Bylaw Enforcement Officer bylaw. This is a procedural bylaw as required by the Municipal Government Act as outlined in our RFD as presented. And the requirements of this bylaw have been in place since approximately 1996 when council at that time for Beaumont did pass our bylaw for our bylaw enforcement officers. Recently, organizational changes have taken place that have required an updating of this bylaw to reflect those changes. In addition, a directive changes internally to the Enforcement Services Department, as well as the need for the modernization of the bylaw to reflect the changes to the current MGA was the requirement, or at least the procedures, or how we move forward with modernizing, or for the modernization of this bylaw. As outlined in the RFD, again, we are seeking three readings, and having said that, be happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so just before we get going, council tonight, we're going to have to make 4 decisions. First, second, a unanimous decision to go to third, and third reading. So if a member of council is willing to move first reading, we will move first reading and then open it up to questions for the presenter.
Get 3 readings on the same night, which is why are we doing that? Is there no need for reflection or discussion with concerned parties?
To Councillor Stout, through your worship, the purpose for 3 readings this evening is that this is an internal or a Beaumont bylaw. There is no impact to our residents. Rather, this is a modernization of our existing bylaw, which has been in place since 1996. In the package, you would have seen that bylaw, and you will note that there's been many changes to it, including again the updating of our current organizational structure, our positions that have been created within Beaumont since the old bylaw was put in place, and of course the modernization of the MGA. Simply, 3 readings tonight would save us save coming back to council asking for a third reading for the operational or procedural bylaw.
Thank you.
Good. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Thank you. Through your worship to the presenter. I think you just answered my question, was around if we were, besides an update as per the MGA, were we behind or had we missed any deadlines along this path? I think the answer is no, and I think we're just improving as per the MGA, but had we missed any deadlines in this process?
To Councillor Van Newkirk, through your worship, no, we hadn't missed any deadlines. Simply, this was a need that we identified during a recent review of the Municipal Enforcement Department. That was a complete top to bottom review, if you will, of our internal documents and such, when this shortcoming, if you will, was identified. And it was a good opportunity to start at the top, so to speak, to start with our bylaw, to work through our directives that we use daily, as well as our standard operating guidelines.
That's great. Thank you.
Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you. Just switched the page, and now I got to go back to where I was. Thank you. One is just detailed to make sure I'm staying on top of who's in what seat because of the changes we've made within the city. The Director of Protective Services, is that yourself or is
Correct.
that someone else?
Yes.
That is you. So you're basically in charge of. This is the person who reports to you as the bylaw enforcement officer. The people that report to you.
To Councillor Barnhart, through your worship, Sergeant Springham, who is our supervisor of municipal enforcement, does directly report to myself, yes.
That's right. And we have just the one at this point?
The one.
One bylaws enforcement officer. How many do we have?
Currently, through Councillor Barnhart, actually to all council, currently we are fully staffed. I'm very proud to say that. Currently with 3 CPO level 1 peace officers. Our third and most recent is our new school resource officer, which you'll hear more about a little later on in our CAO update, who are a level 1 peace officer. We have 1 level 2 peace officer as well as 1 seasonal bylaw officer right now helping us out with some special projects. So in total, we have 4 plus 1 seasonal.
And this bylaw then covers those folks, all of those folks?
It is, to Councillor Barnhart, through your worship, it is inclusive of some of their duties that they fulfill daily.
Okay. And where would I find the rest of their duties?
So, to Councillor Barnhart, through your worship, community peace officers not only enforce municipal bylaws, they also enforce provincial statutes, regulations, and provincial acts. They are governed not only by our own internal processes or procedures, but they're also governed too by the policies as put forward by the Province of Alberta Solicitor General's Office. So if you will, we have bylaw enforcement officers and capabilities here, plus we have community peace officers, and our officers are capable of serving a dual role.
And they need to be sure which hat they were wearing at the time they're doing. I'm sure that's part of the.
Correct.
When we wear multiple hats. Many
Much
of
like
us
the
do.
Director of Protective Services.
Exactly. Exactly. So I do get that. I appreciate that clarification. And the only other question I had at the moment was, okay, when you go down into the bylaw itself, and it comes very close to the very end on the last page, sorry, this sounds negative, but termination, ABC, and it just struck me, confidentiality carries on beyond the period of termination. So does that mean that confidentiality in these matters goes on forever? That they can never tell anything unless, of course, in a court of law, I would imagine. But.
To Councillor Barnhart, through your worship, yes. Any matters that they've worked on behalf of the City of Beaumont are, of course, confidential at the time of the incident and beyond, and that would be the case, yes.
And that's pretty standard with other organizations that you've seen in terms of this kind of work?
Yes,
the confidentiality is forever?
Yes.
Okay. That's it for me. Thank you.
All right, so I see no further questions. So call the vote on first reading. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Is there a member of council willing to move second reading? Councillor Stout.
I'll move second reading, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Stout. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? That carries unanimously. I will now move that we, as a council, unanimously move to have third reading. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none? All in, sorry. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Is there a member of council willing to move third reading this evening? Councillor Daniluk.
So moved, Your Worship.
Discussion on the motion? All in favor? And that carries unanimously. First, second, third readings. Thank you very much, sir.
Excellent. Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening.
All right, which brings us to councillors' inquiries and reports. So I know there's a number of councillors with some questions, so we will start with questions, then move to reports. So is there any member of council wishing to ask questions of administration this evening? Councillor Van Newkirk.
Thank you. We had a summer break and been saving up some questions, so I have a few for tonight. I got 5 in total. First question was around a final report on the ELA program. Can administration provide council with an anticipated timeline that we'll see the final report outlining or reviewing the ELA project? And will it be presented as a report to council or report to the community? Been asked several times on how the program or project will be wrapped up and what it will look like and what we might expect to see. Just hoping to get a little taste of that. Thank you.
Through your worship to Councillor Van Newkirk, yes. So with ELA, as you know, we've entered into phase 3, which is our vehicle to infrastructure phase. We have committed to providing this report to council on the outcomes of this project. However, phase 3 is incredibly important to this project, and the learnings from this are incredibly important. So we have internally identified that right after ELA ceases operations on October 7th, we will provide a preliminary report to the community by the middle of October. And then following that, we will be compiling all the results from the pilot into a final report, which would then be presented to council with the results on the project. And that would be delivered in the new year.
Yeah. Q1-ish type thing?
Yes, correct. Q1.
Okay.
Might as well keep going.
Okay, sounds good. Second one, I actually had 3 residents reach out to me on this one. It's is an operational piece, but it made me go for a walk and have a look. There's been some trees mulched and removed in LeBlanc Canal behind the east of the new multi-story condo there, and it looks like the trees have been selected for selected for rationale and reason. Just wondering if we might get an update on what we're up to, and more importantly to the residents, is if there's more trees that are going to be removed from there, because it is really nice looking spot. So,
Ms. Molly?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through to Councillor Van Newkirk. A tree fell on a fence, and that caused Parks and Facilities to inspect additional trees in the area. And this resulted in some of the dead and dying trees to be removed. At this point, they don't have any future plans for removing any trees. They've just kind of cleaned it up, and they're leaving it as is.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. Okay, thank you for that. Another one here. I believe this one has been asked before, so it might be an update on this one. Heading south down 50th Street, down to the bottom of the hill, there's a left turn on the 43rd Ave where there is a left turn signal that is available but not used. I think it's been brought up before, but I'm just wondering for an update, and I can't recall if there's a traffic count trigger or if there's any other piece that we need to have in place before we turn that on, or just some more information on that. Thank you.
Through Your Worship to Councillor Van Newkirk. We have looked at this intersection before, and the previous work that had been done on it found that the volume of traffic was not enough to warrant the left turn signal to be turned on. However, we did have a report approved, funding for a report approved by council last year to look at traffic upgrades. And as part of that, we're going to scoop that intersection in there in that left-hand turn lane as well to see maybe if the volume now actually does warrant that left-hand turning. So our expectation is that report should be completed towards the end of October, and we'll have an idea then if that left turn signal should be turned on.
Perfect. Yeah, we don't want to do it for no reason. We want to have the data to support. So yeah, thank you for that update. This one is kind of near and dear to my heart, and I really like the system, the service Beaumont. Just wondering if we could have an update on some of the usage of the service Beaumont icon on the website, where you go onto the website and you click onto that, and it brings you to an ArcGIS format where you can add photos and map and use drop-down menus and have some visibility about any of the operational issues that we have in Beaumont. I think it's an important service for everyone to use, and just wondering how many people are using it. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through to Councillor Van Newkirk. For Service Beaumont, to date, since the launch, which was August 14th, we've received 51 resident concerns. 26 of those are closed and completed, and 25 are in progress. 71% of the concerns were received online and 29% on the phone. So when people call in, there's someone here inside the city that enters it into the system. In terms of the system and how council can remain involved in this is we're really hoping that council can be ambassadors really for Service Beaumont. So when you hear about issues happening with the city, recommending to the residents that they either visit the website or they give us a call and then we enter them into the system. So helping us essentially get the word out about this new service would be wonderful. Thanks.
Thank you. And that's kind of the point I wanted to make is that, you know, the more that we can direct those kinds of concerns into there, then concerns have an opportunity to be looked at and or rectified. So I think that's important. And the last one is also of keen interest to mine. If we could get an update on the 3D sidewalks in Beaumont, you know, what are we doing to correct or repair them so that they, you know, they may actually look and appear how the community expected they would. There was some disappointment as, you know, basically on how they turned out. I was hoping for a little bit better. I think others were too. But just an update. What are we going to do with those? I know we've added one, and just adding a crosswalk, like there's a win. Let's fist bump that one. But the rest of it, what are we doing to make those better? Thank you.
Through your worship to Councillor Van Newkirk. So the first thing that I really want to put out there is that they were a pilot project to see how it would go. The designs were slightly different between the 3D crosswalks. Something that we learned along the way is that actually to get the 3D effect, you have to be standing at a certain angle or you have to be a certain height in your vehicle to actually get the effect. We haven't been too thrilled about that either. We'd rather have a universal effect where you can get 3D as you're approaching it. I've been told that people who are walking have more of an impact in viewing the 3D than the actual vehicles themselves. So the thought at this point is that we will leave those crosswalks. They still serve the crosswalk function in terms of the white bar and indication that there's a crosswalk there. So there's nothing really that has to change. If we were to tinker with it, it would be trying to fix the 3D effect. At this point, we feel that the 3D effect would be hard to achieve on either of those crosswalks. So just like when we paint a crosswalk every year, the paint fades and then gets repainted the next year. So the thought is at this point that when those crosswalks get repainted next year, they'll just be painted as a regular crosswalk would. That said, we are currently working with Alberta Traffic Supply, and they have offered to install a 3D crosswalk for free for the city of Beaumont. This time it's not painted, it's made with a material called thermoplast. Brighter, has a different texture, kind of stands out better than paint. They think they can achieve the 3D effect. So we're working with them to finalize what that design is and where the best location for that is going to be. So that'll be coming soon. Our intent is actually to share some communications with the community about our finding about this pilot project and about the 3D crosswalks. So that's going to be coming out soon. It will be coming out on social media to help get the messaging out about what's going on there.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's important that we do that because, you know, we live in a pretty instantaneous world. You know, you used to take my parents a week to buy a car, and now we can do it in an hour. And, you know, that's the service and the communication and everything that everyone is expected. It's a pilot project, as you said, and, you know, whether it worked or not, you know, look at what we have. We have another opportunity to try something else new and, you know, at no cost to our residents. So thank you for bringing that up. And that's the questions I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Danlock.
Thank you, Your Worship. To Ms. Mohammed, if I could, please. Last night, as you know, Council attended the Child Care Service and Engagement event at the CCBCC. It was well attended by Council. I do appreciate my colleagues joining me in that endeavor last night. We had about 60 people come out, and a lot of opinions were shared. The vast majority of people who were making choice at the end chose the full cost recovery option, but many of the parents who were in attendance approached Council and mentioned to the moderators that they're concerned with getting a more accurate picture of the actual amount of subsidy in terms of what makes that subsidy from the city to the service that's causing such dismay around the people in the city here. So if we could have for October's Committee of the Whole a good recap of the full cost recovery model and what the subsidy amount actually is broken down, if it's consisting most of labor or materials, that sort of thing. I'm not getting down to, staples and pens, that sort of thing, but get an idea that we can go back to the community and give them a very good example of what that subsidy is made up of and what the cost recovery model is going to look like. Thank you very much.
Through your worship to Councillor Daniluk, yes, we can provide that for the October meeting. Thank you.
And as just a continuation of that, please pass on the thanks of council to all the members of staff that were there that night. A lot of them were coming in after hours to perform the functions that they did, and they did an outstanding job. So please pass on our thanks to them. Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Your Worship. I noticed that after last week's council meeting, a summary report appeared in the Beaumont News, Nouvelle de Beaumont. And I was wondering if that was going to continue, if it was the intention to publish those subsequently.
Through your worship to Councillor Stout, I'm sorry, I must have missed. What was the summary report in?
It was done in an advertisement format.
Was that you? That was you?
Ms. Winter?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Stout. Are you speaking with regards to the council highlights?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through Councillor Stout. Those come out every week.
But that was, I hadn't seen that before. Am I mistaken in thinking that had appeared before, had not appeared before?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through Councillor Stout. Those come out every Friday. Council highlights on the meeting with regards to Committee of the Whole and our council meetings.
Okay, then I've obviously been missing something. Is any version of that available electronically?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through Councillor Stout. Myself and Communications have been meeting this week with regards to looking at putting council briefings online, and it's something that Communications is going to be looking into doing in the very near future.
So there is a prospect of having that in the near future.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Stout. That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any further questions from members of council for members of admin? Are there any members of council wishing to make a statement this evening? Councillor Daniluk?
Thank you, Your Worship. I forgot to ask you before the meeting, were you planning on saying something about the barbecue on Sunday, or should I do that?
That was on my list, but go ahead.
No, go right ahead. On your list, and please go ahead and do so. Thank you.
No other members of council? All right, so I do have a quick update for members of council and members of administration. It's been, since September started, it's been a quick back to work for the politicians in the region. I managed to attend a number of things of regional significance. The Edmonton Metropolitan Region Board recently held its board retreat to update its strategic plan. That's an interesting organization. It's entering an interesting phase in its life. They've completed the growth plan, and now with the subsequent work that's coming out from that, the regional agricultural master plan, the regional master service plan is all coming out, and so the board is really trying to determine its way and to see what continuing relevance it's going to have moving forward into the future, and what that governance model may change and look like. So some interesting work coming there. Looking forward to having some more concrete things that come forward to that to be able to update council on. As Councillor Daniluk asked the question or alluded to, we had a great engagement barbecue. We had probably 60, 70 people come out and enjoy a hot dog and have some really great conversations with members of council on a whole wide range of topics, ranging from some drainage issues that are going on in Forest Heights to the basketball relocation. So looking forward to following up on some of those issues as time goes on with members of admin. Also last week, we had the opportunity to attend the Regional Transit Services Commission meeting, and there's a great we're getting the work on that is coming really quickly and really fast to a close and a decision point for council. The operating models are complete and will be presented here in these chambers to us end of the month, and the financial model, so costs, which is going to help us going forward into budget will also be presented at that time. And last but not least, heading into tomorrow and next week, I'm headed actually down to Lethbridge to meet with the other members of the Mid-Sized Cities Mayors, where we'll be discussing the McKinnon report that came out and to discuss the impacts on the municipalities of the cuts that our UCP government has been telegraphing that are coming municipalities' ways. So it'll be interesting to see what the take is between ourselves and the other 22 mayors that are part of that group. So I look forward to updating council on the outcome of that meeting at our next meeting. Are there any questions from members of council for me this evening? Councillor Barnhart.
A question, Mayor, when is becoming a city one of the benefits of being able to go to the mid-city mayors?
That is, well,
we used to get an invite, but maybe not the same way. I don't know.
You're definitely a second-class citizen if you're a town. I'm not gonna lie.
Thank you.
But generally, it's any municipality in the province that has a population greater than 10,000 people is invited to sit as part of this group. Councillor Danlock.
Thank you, Your Worship, for your comments there. And I know it's September 10th. It's been a very busy first 10 days of September. And at that point, I want to just mention something you may have been remiss to mention was that I was joined by Mayor Stewart and Councillor Stout this past Saturday in Morinville. Our sister municipality had the grand opening of their new rec center, built by Clark Builders, who is building our rec center as well, as you're all fully aware. And their facility was built on time and on budget, done very well, a rink, field house, a weight room and other facilities. Very similar to ours. Our advantage is we're adding on to existing buildings, so our design is much different, more of a V shape, and it looks great architecturally. So they did a great job for Morinville, and they're doing a good job for us because, as I understand from talking administration before today's meeting, we are currently with Clark Builders on time and on budget for our project to open sometime in the summer of 2020 is still anticipated. So they did a good job for Morinville and doing a good job for us so far. So it should go nicely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That did slip off my radar. So yeah, seeing nothing further, CAO's update. Ms. Mohammed.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll start the updates with introducing Mike Berezowski, who's just past Kendra here to my left. Mike is our new, or Comms Mike, as we've been calling him, is our new manager of communications and marketing. He has over 16 years of public relations experience in roles ranging from communications director for the Department of Finance and Treasury Board at the Government of Alberta to senior level communications roles at a number of other provincial departments. Most recently, Mike was the executive director, corporate communications for Alberta Pension Services Corporation. And he is going to be regularly attending council meetings and committee of the whole meetings, as well as liaising with council for communications. So welcome, Mike. I also want to thank staff for a successful childcare engagement event last night. Also to inform council that a What We Heard document from last night is being prepared and it is proposed to come back in October as well. The Beaumont Sport and Rec Center pool shutdown schedule is on track, and we're hoping to have the pool open again by next Tuesday. And Beaumont School Resource Officer Christine Hepburn has been appointed as a Community Peace Officer Level 1. She's also been very well received by Star Catholic School Board and Black Gold School Division, elementary schools, the junior high, and the high school. She's currently has her office at the high school and will soon have a working space at the junior high. For the community standards bylaw, a communications plan will be brought to committee of the whole soon, and we're looking to review the communications plan for this one because it's going to be such a robust project. To walk through council with it, and just because of the timing of the year, we're thinking that it might be best once we have all the project management and the communications worked out, that it launch in January after Christmas. So it would be run during the first quarter of 2020. And finally, after our last council meeting and the robust discussion that occurred about the reservoir repairs and the relocation of the basketball court, we challenged administration to re-examine the possibilities of relocating the basketball court in the same area where the current reservoir is located, not on top of the reservoir. So based, with a little bit of research, based on Beaumont's most recent utilities report and the new lands available in the annexation area, the entire area of the public utility lot where the reservoir currently is no longer needed for expansion of the reservoir. So we still need to repair the reservoir, but we don't need to expand it in the future because there's other lands available for that. As a result, we're proposing, not tonight, further information will come to council, that this public utility lot be redesignated as municipal reserve. And then on the municipal reserve lands, you can build a basketball court. So it would be located in the same area, just not right on top of the reservoir.
Awesome.
Okay, so
That's great news.
there would have to be some work done in terms of changing it from a public utility lot to municipal reserve. And then also what we would like to do is have some community engagement to occur over the basketball court, if it's just a simple basketball court with a fence around it, or if we're putting boards around it, because throughout this process we've heard that that basketball court isn't just being used as a basketball court, there's other functions going on there. So if we're going to rebuild it, let's engage the community and see how we can rebuild it best to serve their needs. So that will be coming out probably towards the end of the year, the beginning of the year. We'll start that engagement process for the basketball court. But in the meantime, the repairs on the reservoir are moving ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's great news because there's a lot of people that like that right where it sits. So that's a great solution to the problem. Having said that, we now have one item of correspondence that came onto the agenda tonight, came to us via the library board and Councillor Stout. So I'll let you speak to what's going on.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, there was a meeting of the library board last night, which I was unable to attend, being at the childcare services engagement instead. At that meeting, a motion was passed to request the mayor to write a letter to the federal Parliament regarding the accessibility and availability of e-books and audiobooks. I've enclosed some of the literature, some of the supporting information that they had. Could we scroll down to? We haven't got it on the. Have we got it on the agenda package? Oh, okay. Could we go to the? This is a presentation that was given by Edmonton Public Libraries to the Edmonton. Yes, that one. Which I think is the most concise summary of it. So, essentially the problem is that the Beaumont Public Library is currently downloading somewhere in the order of, in 2018 it was over 12,500 e-books and downloads were made through the Beaumont Library. The problem is that various multinational companies are charging considerably more for digital copies over physical copies. As you can see there's an example of Anne Prule's book. And the general rule has been that they have the effect of this is to restrict e-book access and to increase the prices. There's a bunch of publishers who are, that's one example. Can we go just back up to the list of, there we go. The other guy is Tor Books, division of Macmillan Publishers, leading global publisher of science fiction and fantasy, which I'll admit that I sometimes read, announced in July 2018 that new titles from Tor Books will be available for library ebook distribution 4 months after their retail on sale date. So essentially that's an embargo, meaning that public library users are disadvantaged trying to access that digital content. Hachette has another book group announced in June 2019 a change in its perpetual ownership model for libraries. So there'll be a 2-year access model for ebooks. This means that at the end of the 2-year period, libraries have to repurchase ebooks that they've already paid for when renewing their access agreements. June 2019, Blackstone Publishing there implemented a 90-day embargo on digital audiobook titles. This embargo means libraries will not be able to purchase new in-demand content for 90 days after release, putting library users at a disadvantage again when accessing these new titles. And June 2019, Macmillan Publishers announced a new library ebook lending model. Under this new model, libraries will only be able to purchase a single copy of any new title when it's released for sale to the general public, and will be forced to wait 8 weeks before they are able to buy additional copies. So it's not just the cost, it's restrictions on the access to them. As I mentioned earlier, the downloading of ebooks and the use of audiobooks is a growing and significant trend in the library in all public libraries. There's over 2018 figures for Beaumont Library, 12,426 downloads of e-content, contributing to a total of 114,694 checkouts. So the thing to emphasize is libraries are no longer just stacks of books. This is a critical part and growing rapidly of what they do. So the request was to write a letter to the Federal Parliament. There's a sample letter enclosed. Again, I'm afraid the one is intended for Edmonton, and I believe Edmonton Council passed that, and Mayor Iveson sent something very like that to the Federal Parliament. However, since yesterday, Prime Minister has apparently got an appointment tomorrow morning with the Governor-General, which is expected to call a general election, which will, of course, dissolve Parliament. So we don't technically have any federal members of Parliament as soon as that happens. So what I'm going to suggest is that we prepare as if I'm going to make a motion that the Mayor sends a letter to the Federal Parliament immediately after the next election.
No, I'd be supportive of that. Our library is a very well-used resource in our community, and anything we can do to support it, and if writing a few letters helps that out, then I think we as a council should do that. So, you prepared to make a motion to that effect this evening?
Yes, certainly. I'm struggling for the wording. But I will certainly make a motion that the Mayor should address a letter to the next Federal Parliament regarding the availability and accessibility of e-books and audiobooks, indicating our support for Canadian... I haven't got the wording here. I beg your pardon. What I'd like to request is that the Mayor sends a letter to the members of the next Federal Parliament indicating Beaumont City's Council's support and endorsement for increased access to digital content for library users across Canada. Also a request that the federal government investigate the barriers faced by libraries acquiring digital content, the problems it poses for vulnerable and other demographic groups in Canada. And finally, that the federal government develop a solution that increases public library access to digital content across Canada.
Cool. And can you provide that to Ms. Winter?
Yes, it's in the document.
Thank you. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Stout, for bringing it forward in very short order. You just heard about it. My question is to the administration. We don't often have motions like this walked on, and I appreciate why we are. So I'm just wondering, are there any concerns from any perspective that we should postpone voting on this right now?
Ms. Winter?
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Councillor Barnhart. It was Legislative Services recommendation to walk this onto the agenda, have this motion. This would be similar to any type of board or committee where we're looking for support of a council member being appointed to or not. Same sort of idea. It doesn't really fit into the notice of motion. It fits more into support council. So at this time, Legislative Services does not see any problems with process with regards to walking this onto the agenda this evening. Thank you.
Further discussion or questions on the motion? All right, seeing none. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Are there Leading to item number 13, notice of motion. Are there any notices of motion this evening from members of council? A comment? Sure.
Thank you, Worship. I was going to get your attention before we move on to the next category, but I just wanted to say congratulations to council and administration. I think the debate we had 2 weeks ago about the reservoir and the basketball court was lively, and within 2 weeks, administration came up with an innovative solution to fix the problem, and that's incredibly quickly done and great work, and I think sometimes administration not get the kind of kudos they deserve for doing great work. And I want to thank you guys on behalf of the council for doing that. I believe people in the community will be very happy as well too. So thank you for the quick turnaround.
All right. No notice of motion. There are no items in closed session, which leaves us adjourned. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming this evening.